Thank you so much, Dane, and thank you for inviting me to join you. At the first place, I was thinking I'm not going to make it because of the president's meeting here, but I was able to make allowances to make sure that I would be present and share with you, our brothers and sisters, and in the United States. Just at a nutshell, so maybe before telling you about the Episcopal University, I just want to let you know that the current, the Episcopal Church of South Sudan had, largely grown. It had 61 dioceses, and then 9 internal provinces, which include the mother diocese Juba, and it has 66 bishops, in which 61 are diocesan bishop and 5 of them are assistant bishop. And it had 3,518 priests and deacons, which are serving 4.2 million Anglican members, and also in the parishes, 2,111 parishes across the whole country. That is the breadth and the depths of the Episcopal Church of South Sudan. We are delighted that we are being accredited as a full university now by the Ministry of Higher Education in South Sudan. It has taken us quite a long time about getting these accreditations. The Episcopal University is actually an Anglican foundation and Christian university, which has 5 colleges, and these 5 colleges are all across South Sudan. We had St. John, that is in Bahar Ghazal region, which is further west, and then we had Rank, which is in the border with Sudan, and we have Keju, which is in south part of the South Sudan, and then we had Chaima College, which is in the western side of South Sudan, and then we had Bishop Gwyn School of Theology. Previously, it's known as Bishop Gwyn College. Now it be named Bishop Gwyn School of Theology. These 5 colleges are the consortium that form the Episcopal University. We are currently in Juba. We are going to have theology and law will start in Juba, while in Keju we had business and administrations and education, primary education, early childhood education, and then also in St. John, as well as in Chaima, the same courses are taking place, including agriculture. We were able to acquire a very big land in Rokon Diocese, which is 53 miles away from Juba, in order for us to be able to build what we call administrative nerve center. We were given a very big land, which
I think so. Let me see if I get rid of this. Before I screwed it entirely.
If I can just interpose here, if you're not speaking, please do mute yourself so that there will not be interruption of the presentation. Go ahead, Joseph, please.
We were able to secure 4x4 kilometers square of land, but we are going to start by begin putting a fence within 2x2 kilometers square of land to begin building the university, what we call administrative nerve center there. We have already had 3 bower holes being drilled there, supported by AFREX, and we are very grateful that we were able to get a very good consumption water that is consumable and very healthy water. And we will soon, by God's grace, will start putting the fence in place. While in Juba itself, which is the central part of the campus in Bishop Gwyn, we also had brought in Engineers International Ministry to do the design, who they actually were the one who did the design for us, architectural designs in Rokon. And they also did the similar architectural design for us to modernize the facilities in Juba so that it can be facilities that are best for modern, institutions and modern learning campus. We are going to have the first intake for law department, and we had discussed with the lecturers who are already lined up, and about 12 of them are 5 PhD holders, and then the rest are master's degree. For us to take the first intake for law faculty, we are going to take about 60 students. But also we are going to take new students for the theology, adding to 300 students that are already also in campus in Juba. Otherwise, in the other campuses, we had 160 students in KGKG. We had 282 in WOW, St. John's. We have 87 students in Chima. And Rang Theological College currently is closed, simply because what happened was that the principal, I think whether resigned or suspended, and then we have not yet worked together to begin opening it again. But we know the staff are there, but students are not going to take intake this year. Generally, the situations in the South Sudan, there are three major, challenges. One of the challenges is conflict violence in the country. Weapons are plenty and easily obtained in South Sudan, and then also criminals are often armed, which is very challenging. In addition, there are intercommunal and intra-communal conflict across the whole country, and this has a direct impact on the livelihood of the people across the whole province and the dioceses. And although the parties to the agreement, the RIAs, is still holding peace together, the non-signatories to the peace agreement stay outside of it. And as a result, it's still posing a kind of threat, although there is negotiations going on in Santo Agudio in Rome. And we pray and hope that the visit of Archbishop of Canterbury, together with Pope and moderator of the Church of Scotland, will bring fruits of hope, because currently people in the grassroots have been energized so much by this, and they are hopeful. They are even demanding their government that they must take a very good action in order that peace must be restored in the country. The president himself has promised to say he's not going to take the country back to war. He had also said to those of Pope to say, look, when we went and you kiss our feet in Rome, my colleague who was a rivaler and who was by then even in the bush fighting was not there. Now you can see that he's already here as a vice president, meaning that we're working very hard to ensure that peace will continue. So we continue to pray and, watching the space that things will develop very well. The other challenge is actually the economic crisis. Because of the conflict and the coronavirus, it has created a kind of domino effect on economic crisis in South Sudan. The inflation rate has gone up very high. It pushes the prices in the market very, very high, and also as well as living condition becomes so miserable for South Sudanese, which is very, affecting. And then also it created a kind of what we call antisocial behaviors, simply because when you're hungry and there are so many young people who are not currently employed and so on, some of them even can be recruited for criminality, and others may even in one way or the other cause some problem here and there, causing a threat to the country. And then the other third problem that we had is actually the environmental problem. climate change and floods are becoming common in South Sudan. And then it decrease the rainfalls and then also raise up the temperature. And as a result, if there is any other rainfall that came, it just come like a torrential rain, which flooded the River Nile, including Low River in Western Bahar, in Bahar Ghazal. And then it caused, loss of life, both human and animals. These are the problem that we are facing. But generally also we are now in South Sudan had already the Episcopal Church had declared a decade of this discipleship, where we want to talk to our community for character of change so that they can have a Jesus likeness in their character and become a good people. We also had formed what is called Episcopal Mediation Advisory Team, in which I'm part of these members. And this team is actually to conduct advocacy and civic educations on issues that are affecting the whole country, including also taking a step now after when Pope and Archbishop Canterbury had visited. So what is it that we're expecting? As a church, we have to follow it up with mediations and meeting stakeholders, particularly key people in the government, so that we can be able now to help and support our leaders, including our communities, ushering them and pushing them toward peace. The other part, so that I now conclude, is actually the sustainable development. Episcopal Church is actually trying very hard to do constructions of rental properties, including guest house. They also had agricultural activities and green environment tree planting, where is taken by the youth in the country, in order that it will just make the church contribute toward sustainable goal, sustainable development in the country. So just in a nutshell, in all that, these are the things that we are working on. And we are praying that with the facilities of the university now there in the university presence, we are going to contribute directly also through educations to the country. And the first governing council is going to take place on the 10th of March, so that we discuss a wider range of issues to do with the university, including other issues that will be taken up by us in the university. Thank you so much for hearing. And if you have any question, I will be able to present later on.
Thank you very much, Canon Joseph, for that explanation. It's really exciting what is going on with the university, and the university provides opportunities that are very much missed in South Sudan, where the scope for young people to go to university, even if they're qualified, is very limited. So this is a tremendous contribution to the future of South Sudan as a whole. I had hoped to welcome Mama Harriet Baka, who's the dynamic head of Mothers Union in South Sudan. She doesn't appear to have come on. We can all imagine what might have happened in trying to get that connection with South Sudan. I'm going to ask Tom Pritchard, since he's in Sudan, to come on and give us an idea of what he's doing in terms of accompanying Christians in Sudan and South Sudan. Tom, can you join us?
Tom, you are muted still. Just need to hit that microphone button to unmute yourself.
Thank
you.
There we go.
Oh, there you are.
I
now
was trying. It's hard to do it on a phone. So am I loud and clear?
Yes, you are. Thank you.
Okay. I want to mention a couple things. I'm in Rumbek, South Sudan right now. and I've been here. I've been in South Sudan a couple of weeks. I'm going to have half a week more, and I want to ask everybody to do something for me, and that is, would everybody after this call Google moringa, Moringa, moringa. It's a tree from India, and it is an extraordinary way to improve the nutrition in a way that's sustainable, and it also has extraordinary medicinal benefits. And one of them, you eat the leaves of the moringa. You can also eat other parts of the tree, but the leaves are absolutely key. And one extraordinary thing is, you know, as you guys know, the food insecurity is quite severe. And I have, in the past few days, heard several reports of mothers who were not producing enough milk, and their children were in terrible shape. I had the administrator of a hospital here in Rumbek tell me today about 3 children that were near death, and they prescribed what they normal prescription failed to cause the moms to lactate enough, but it was moringa that caused the mothers to produce enough. And one funny story, the fellow who's working extraordinarily trained 780 women here in Rumbek, he said the family who experienced a child being so near death and turning around and surviving, he said they decided they would give him a bull. And he said, well, I can't really accept that. But that was the level of their appreciation. I really ask you to look at moringa. We have distributed millions of seeds, and we've been training people. Our greatest work has been we did some in a few places in Sudan. We also in a couple places, principally, and Rumbek. We've done some in Juba, but I really encourage people. Our dream is simply that every mother in South Sudan would have a moringa tree within reach, so that they can simply pick the leaves and throw the leaves into the porridge or whatever they're cooking. So I just encourage you. I think we can save a lot of lives. And I've heard so many stories in the past 2 weeks of people who really recovered because, you know, their nutrition is so bad, and all of a sudden they get something loaded with vitamins and minerals and other beneficial nutrition. So please take a look at it. We've been doing this as an interfaith effort. We have a Muslim man who's done it in several places, even had it carried to Darfur and other places. So it's an extraordinary effort, and a way that the church has an entree to other people. Bishop Abraham Nyal is using it across tribal lines so that they can go and say, we have something that we believe will be a blessing to you and your family. And I was with a group of 60 women, and these were the poorest of the poor themselves. And they said they were going to reach out to people even poorer and take the moringa seeds to them and teach them how to use it. So thank you for letting me say a word about that. And I'd love to. My name is Tom Pritchard. If you Google Episcopalian, Sudan Sunrise.org. Anyway, it's extraordinary. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom. I've learned that Mama Harriet Baca is desperately trying to get on.
Good.
Naomi Herbert, who's apparently in Juba with her, is going to try to get her to speak through her phone. Can you try that, Naomi?
Okay, Mama Harriet, over to you.
First of all, I want to apologize for the technology. I could see pictures, but there's no voice on my phone. And I want to thank Naomi for that help. I'm saying hi to everybody that is online.
Hello, welcome, Naomi.
Everyone's on mute, Mama Harriet, so they're kind of waving.
Yeah, but can they hear me?
Can you hear everyone?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Can hear you just
Perfect.
fine, Mama Harriet. Please go ahead with your presentation.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm Mama Harriet, the Mother's Union Provincial Coordinator, coordinating 61 dioceses across the country. And the role of us as the Mother's Union, we are empowering women. 3/4 of women in South Sudan, given the conflict, according to the context. I know most of you are aware of the context of South Sudan. A lot of conflicts, series of conflict, even up to date, still we are in conflict. As a result, many women were lagging behind. That's why the Mother's Union started the literacy program in 2000. And we started by making them to read and write. And then we added, because according to our baseline survey or the community envisioning, we found that most families have challenges of getting because most of them are unemployed. And not only that, their eyes were not open as such to see the potential that God has given them. But given the Mother's Union literacy supported by our members in UK, and right now as I speak, Nome is in the ground, we empowered the women and then we gave them savings group. Why savings? Is for them to sort of fight the economic challenges so that they are able to get the basic needs for their families. And we went further, we say it is not about really money, but we found that everybody in South Sudan, not only women, are traumatized. People are very, very violent, and we identified in our baseline survey to say the trauma healing is needed in addition to the literacy, numeracy, and the economic empowerment. And so we introduced sessions of trauma healing. And then it is one, I just want to tell the listeners, and I saw Reverend Bilal of the Sokopoly University of South Sudan, who was able to support a survey. And we came with a paper that I shared with Dan, and Dan got our partners on board. And I want to send a word of gratitude for funding the gender-based violence that started last year. And as we formed 24 groups to pilot, the stories were heartbreaking. The stories of killing, of rape, of domestic violence, women are being molested and beaten. And so we say now we really can't meet all those needs, but the only answer to it is to give them actually the literacy, because once they are literate and they have the knowledge and their eyes are open, then they can stand up and now carry the advocates' work and see where, for example, in the church, do we have policy in place that talks about gender-based violence against women? And do we also network with the government to see policies in place about sexual gender-based violence and other different violences in South Sudan, in our families, in the communities, and the entire country?
Thank you so much, Mama Harriet. I'm sorry we can't see your face, but that was an excellent introduction to the fine work that Mothers Union is doing. I want to mention that I visited South Sudan, as I mentioned, in August, and was able to go to the Diocese of Terekeka, where our partners, Five Talents and AFREX, have been doing trauma healing. And by the way, Maria Owen from Five Talents is on. I know maybe there are others from Five Talents. I was able to meet with the women who are doing the instruction, and it was quite inspiring. We went to another very small parish, Luyari, outside of Terekeka, where this was going on, trauma healing in a very small community. It is so important. We are seeking funds to expand our own trauma healing work, which is now in Renk and Terekeka, and this year we're joining Five Talents and working in Juba as well. I would like to recognize Bill Andrus, who as a Presbyterian and as a leader in Trinity South Sudan Ministry is on this call. Another group that is very much in companionship with Christians in South Sudan. Bill Andrus has been working very much on peace building. I want to call attention to what they're doing. I would also like to mention Canon Ian Woodard, who's on this call, who is the vicar of the close at Salisbury Diocese and has been a wonderful partner to Christians in Sudan and South Sudan for many years. He's a terrific advocate and organizer for this work. I have to say that much of the resources, financial resources going into South Sudan are coming from the British side, thanks to Salisbury and other dioceses in the UK. Also note that Reverend David Karanja, the African Partnership Officer of the Episcopal Church, is on. He is very much a promoter of our cooperation with Sudan and South Sudan. I'd like to turn to Richard Jones, retired professor of mission at Virginia Theological Seminary, a founder of AFREX, who will say a few words about AFREX. Rich.
Thank you very much, Dane. AFREX was created in 2005 when hopes were so high for peace after 2 generations of war. And at that time, there were a dozen U.S. dioceses and parishes who had some kind of formal companion relationship. And there was widespread sympathy, thanks to the Lost Boys who knocked on our doors in churches around the United States after 2000. But after 2013, the violence between factions in the South, the waning of relationships, our network weakened. It's been renewed since 2019. I think the visit of Archbishop Joseph Badiarama to the United States was helpful. Dane Smith's and others' visits to South Sudan, coming back and telling us what they've seen and heard, have helped us. So I can offer to all of you who are interested the services of AFREX as a resource point, a point of contact. The website is AFRECS, American Friends of the Episcopal Church of the Sudans, AFRECS.org.
Thank you, Rich. I'd like to ask Canon Ian if he would say a few things. He's very much up on what's going on and might have some reflections on the results of the recent visit that drew so much attention.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dane. It's a real pleasure to be with you all. If I could just say a few words about Salisbury. This year, or the end of last year and the beginning of this year, we marked 50 years of partnership with the Sudan, as it was, and of course now we call it the Sudans, the Episcopal churches. It started quite small initially on education, and particularly theological education, because there was the Bishop Gwynn College, which was a relic, as it were, from the days of the British-Egyptian condominium, which came to an end in 1956. But whilst it was never part of the British Empire, if I dare say that, the British influence in terms of administration was there until 1956, and there are still some old Sudanese people who will say to me, "Please, could you come back?" And I said, "Absolutely not. No, we've left that behind." But the point is that the church connections that were made then, in the period up to then, still exist, and that's why we hold the link, as it were. As you probably know, each diocese in the Church of England, and there are 42 of them, has a link with somewhere else in the Anglican Communion. And Salisbury's link is unusually not with another diocese, as it usually is, but with two complete provinces. And if you add the north to the south, to South Sudan, the Episcopal churches, there are 67 dioceses that we are theoretically linked with. But of course, we can't do that on our own. What we try and do is share that, and that's why our long-standing link with Afrex is hugely important to Salisbury. But in addition to education, which extends to schools now, particularly church schools, we also we have a very focused medical aspect to our work, which is focused at the moment on Western Equatoria, where we distribute essential drugs and we train clinical assistants and midwives, because as you probably know, the rate of neonatal deaths, babies and mothers, is still quite horrendous. And so we elected to focus on trying to improve that situation. And then the other priority we have, and I was working on this today, is advocacy. As you probably know, again, the US and the UK and Norway form the Troika, and our three governments are still guarantors of the peace agreement, which led to the independence of South Sudan. And holding that responsibility gives us an entree to the British government. I was in our Foreign Office in London today talking about some of the results of the ecumenical pilgrimage. It was quite interesting. One of what the BBC's Africa correspondent asked Archbishop Justin Welby, Archbishop of Canterbury, were these gestures of any real help? And the Archbishop of Canterbury's response was, well, sometimes you have to knock doors down to get people's attention. But it is true that we need to follow up now. I think as Joseph Lowes has mentioned, a good old friend of mine, that we need to follow up locally, because unless peace is completely owned at parish level, which means below tribe and clan level. It means at the very root of community. Unless peace exists there, then we will not get out of this cycle of violence. And I think that's understood. And we are, there's a great deal of work going on, which will try and formulate plans. And I'll certainly be sharing those with Dane and with Rich Jones and others. And so the story continues. So whilst we've been at it a long time, we are by no means, even after 50 years, experts on Sudan, because I don't actually think there's such a thing, because it's such a wonderful place, but a complex place with many complex needs. But we'll stick with it. And certainly the partnership that we shared with Afrex has been a joy. And it's very good, if I can say, to see my old friend Bishop David Jones on the screen here as well. So long may that continue. But thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Ian. I think we should open it up to questions and remarks that people may have. Who has questions or observations for us?
I've got one, if I may. I always used to think that Reverend Robin Denny was the Johnny Appleseed of Moringa, but now I think it's going to be Tommy Moringa seeds. Thank you, Tom, for that.
There you go.
I'm coming in a couple of weeks. How many packets of Moringa seeds can I get through customs? Can I just carry this stuff right through?
We can get them for you. Wait a second, am I unmuted? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have a supplier in Uganda, and Moringa is widely used in Uganda and Kenya, and we can get you Moringa seeds, and also a little pamphlet done by Dr. Wendy Lamarcon about Moringa. Yeah.
I want to mention Phil Darrow, who is president of Afrex. I knew he was on, but I couldn't tell who he was, because I saw this thing, it said Moose, and I did not recognize that as associated with him. But at any rate, he's the president of Afrex, based in Denver, and is shortly making a considerable trip to South Sudan, from which we're expecting a lot. Other comments?
Can I come?
David.
Yeah, well, my name is David Basuni from South Sudan, and it's a delight to join you in this meeting. It's my first ever meeting with Afrex, and I'm really impressed with the range of people that I see on the screen, and also the number of activities you are engaged with in the Sudans. This is very encouraging, and I hope to be part of this. My question is to Reverend Joseph about the Episcopal University. I assume that in your plan for admissions, there is ample guarantee that there will be gender equity in your recruitment of students to the university. That's one question. The other is that since you are situated in a very critical area and country, your outreach programs, be it in agriculture, in livestock, in many other areas, is important, because the outreach from the universities, wherever the locations are, wherever you have the campuses, will be a good link with the community. And so I wanted to know if there is any thinking about that. You are part of Sudan as far as church is concerned. You have a university in South Sudan. Do you have a similar university in the Sudan? And will you open your doors also to Christian students from Sudan? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brother David Basuni. First, I
Uncle.
would like to Uncle, yes, Uncle Basuni, that absolutely. First of all, I would like to say that the question of gender equity is very, very significant to us. You're well aware that South Sudan, really, in terms of educations, women are actually not much educated. And we make it as a policy that in any admission that we do, we will definitely take a very good number of female in order that they can learn. Currently, with the Department of Theology, we had already women that are already studying at the Bishop Gwynn School of Theology. With the law, of course, we are going to get number of admissions coming through the government. They had already told us that they are going to allocate to us the number of students. We do not know how many of them they are going to allocate to us, whether those that they can allocate to us had female, gender based in it. But of course, they also give us that as a private institution, we must also take our special intact. And definitely in our discussions, we say we are going to take 61 for the first, for the beginning. We must include women who can meet the requirement to enter as to university. On the issue of outreach, yes. In Western Equatoria, for example, in Chima, we had a very big agricultural plan there. We got a bigger land. Even the land now in Rokon, one of the area that we are going to allocate is actually to begin activities there. As soon as we fence the whole area, we are going, I have already initiated conversations with UNCR and World Food Program in order for them to be able to support us with seedling and many other tools to start agriculture there. As you said, this is the linkage and a very important conversations and connection with the university through this kind of programs, which even to the tree planting and so on. On the question of Sudan, yes, we have Sokai Bible School there. When we started the project of upgrading Bishop Gwynn School of Theology into a degree, and then the idea came in the provincial synod that it needs now, we take our dioceses, colleges to become consortium of Episcopal, what we call Episcopal University. Sokai was part of the process. Unfortunately, in the middle, or fortunately in the middle, Sudan we become independent, and then Sudan also become independent, and then also the Episcopal Church become an independent province also. Then we make an arrangement that now, in order for us to work well, because there become legal issues immediately, first we want Sokai Bible School to connect to Alexandria University in in Cairo. Secondly, we will always open up our doors for the students in Sudan to study inside the university, as we have been for the long time. Even one student graduated last year who is from Sudan. So the university is open up even to Sudan. But even today, I was with Ezekiel Kundo. We are talking about how we can make some arrangements in order that we will have still supporting Sokai Bible School in order that it become more stronger, and then they can have a proper, well-trained theologians in the Sudan. So those things are already put in place.
Yes, remember Archbishop Ezekiel graduated from the Bishop Gwynn College in South Sudan.
Interesting.
Since we have not been able to talk much about Sudan, I thought I might turn to Robert Hayward from Christian Aid, who has spent an enormous amount of time in Sudan lately, working with Adara, the development group for the Episcopal Church of Sudan. Maybe you could just take a minute or two, Robert, to tell us what you've been doing, what's going on in the way of assistance.
Thank you very much, Robert Hayward. I'm now in Khartoum. I just before this trip, I got off in 11 hours on the bus from El Obeid. We've been visiting the diocese of El Obeid and Wad Medini and also Khartoum. And I'm working with the Reverend Bello El Bullock, who's the director of the Episcopal Development and Relief and Development Agency. And we've been sort of helping them with the project proposals. And also I'm working on him with the provincial staff on developing business skills training for the diocese and also strategic development training for the bishops. And I've also been working with the Mothers Union in those two dioceses. And we went to Wad Medini, and the Mothers Union there is amazing. And then at the end of next week, I'm going on to South Sudan, where I'm working with Christian Aid, but also with SUDRA, which is the South Sudanese Development and Relief Agency. And we've been working on a grant from the USAID, which is part of the subcontract called DT Global, and we've submitted a grant for that. We're helping. We heard this week that yesterday that the Primates World Development Relief and Fund in Canada has approved a grant of the equivalent of about $111,000 US for a joint SUDRA and peace program and humanitarian relief program in the northern Bahr Ghazal internal province. And also we're working with the church. Salisbury supports the Juba Diocesan Model Secondary School, and we've just got a large grant approved from the Diocese of Gibraltar for building a new second girls' boarding school there. And while I'm in Juba next week, I'm hoping to get up to Abyei, whereas as Joseph was saying at the beginning, there's a lot of inter-clan conflict between two clans of the Dinka tribe there. So I'll be there next week, and I hope I may see some of the other people who are going to be there. Thank you very much.
Richard is indefatigable. I don't know how he keeps it up. Sorry, Robert Haywood, excuse me. I did want to mention we have several members of our AFREX board on the lines, in addition to our president, whom I spoke of a moment ago, Phil Darrow. We have Stephen Miles, his vice president, Tom Stahl, Bishop David Jones, Larry Duffy, our treasurer, Anita, I'm blanking. There she is.
Sanborn.
Our secretary, Anita Sanborn. Excuse me. Please forgive me, Anita. I also wanted to mention Jackie Krause, who's been mentioned before, who's been an ally for many, many years. And note that Nagulan Nasia from Episcopal Relief and Development is online. He's the one who watches over Sudan and South Sudan from Sri Lanka. Any other comments? I think it's 2 o'clock. Titus, why don't I turn it back to you?
Well, before you do so, I'd be interested in hearing from two other groups that are represented here. One is Water for South Sudan, and the other is Anglican Frontier Missions in the person of Tad DeBordnave. I'm wondering whether those two people might speak about their efforts briefly.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Bob Shea. I'm the current president, and one of our board members, Ann Turner, is with us. It's a delight to hear of all the work being done quickly. If you're not familiar with our work, we're about to next year celebrate 20 years of working in what is now South Sudan. And our foundation here in Rochester, New York, was in part through a connection at St. Paul's Episcopal Church, members of the Episcopal Diocese here. We've since expanded from drilling wells, which we continue to do, 500 plus throughout, and have expanded into the wash sector fully. We're now, we've been repairing wells, not just the ones we've drilled, but that have been drilled elsewhere. We have crews doing that. We employ 60 plus South Sudanese year round and more during the work seasons. We have hygiene education wherever we drill wells. Not much, it's great to have clean water if you don't keep it clean. And beyond that, we've been doing some work in sanitation, where we drill a borehole and then supervise the by a school and create latrines for girls, boys, and staff faculty. So we're expanding in a very careful way in collaborating with the Carter Center and UNICEF in some of our programs. And I'm having spent time a month years ago, I have direct familiarity with the country and the people. Our founder, Salva Dut, was one of the Lost Boys, or as they prefer, Walking Boys. And Salva's story has been captured in the fictional young people's book, A Long Walk to Water, which has been a New York Times bestseller. And we appreciate the opportunity to connect. Dane, you may remember I was present and spoke briefly at an AFREX conference in Roanoke, Virginia, a few years pre-pandemic. So thank you for the time. Thank you. We are online, so feel free to contact us. I'm sure there's areas of collaboration, and the Moringa is one I find fascinating, and I think Tom will be reaching out to once we find out what our team in South Sudan is doing. And I'd say one more thing, which is one of the things I learned was that the people of South Sudan where we work, they see themselves doing the work. They see themselves leading. And that makes a significant difference. And I'm grateful to be part of the organization. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Bob. We certainly consider Water for South Sudan being a major allied organization which has been doing great work for a long time.
Maybe Tad Bourdonnais from Anglican Frontier Missions.
Sure. Thank you. I want to thank you, especially for the event. Titus and Dale and Richard and all of you all that have been involved in this and putting this together. It's been extremely informative and encouraging. Anglican Frontier Missions works with large ethnic groups that have not much Christian work among them. And in Port Sudan is the Beja group, B-E-J-A. And there are 2 million of them. They think they're referred to in Isaiah as the tall, woolly-haired people. So they have a long history there. And they have been there for centuries. There's no question about it. They're Black, they're Muslim, which would be good for Sudan, but they're Black, which is not considered favorable by the government there in Khartoum. And there's considerable persecution of them, official, but by the government. I've learned though that there is a couple sponsored by AFM that's trying to live in Khartoum. Khartoum. They've been kicked out to Egypt, to Uganda, but I think they're back in Khartoum now, specifically and maybe in Port Sudan. I'm not sure. Specifically working to build a network for workers of all sorts that are working with aphasia. But I'm also aware of a very large network of people who are online together, who concentrate with all of their resources for church planning among the aphasia, which I find very encouraging. If you would like to know more about them or be in touch with the network, you can email to me and I will put you in touch with them. That's tadpole@mac.com.
Thank you so much, Tad. And again, I don't want to prolong this, but people seem to are able to stay on. It'd be wonderful to hear from Daniel Karanja, who's the Africa Partnership Officer for the Office of Global Partnerships of the Domestic and Foreign Missionary Society, and has had a good deal to do with Sudan's, and to hear your perspective, Daniel, on this conversation and on your work would be wonderful.
Thank you very much, Titus, and all those who have gathered here. On behalf of David Coprey, who is the Director of Global Partnerships and could not be here today, I would want to commend the gathering and all those who have worked hard to put it together. We host a Mandre Sudan and South Sudan network group in partnership with our friends in the UK and Afrix. And I couldn't agree more with what Canon Woodward said, that the impact of the work, there are a lot of people who are doing work in South Sudan. But my prayer and our goal is that this will eventually sink down to the lowest level, because that's where the real work happens. And that's really where the real change from the bottom up will happen. So we are grateful to be in partnership with all those who are working here, because at the end of the day, it's our sisters and brothers in South Sudan who walk into these churches, who worship in these communities, who are neighbors with children go to the same schools, and everything we can do will, without a question, bear much fruit when it's driven into the grassroots, so that it takes authentic ownership and grows and is nurtured from there, and makes the much needed changes to include what we had from the Mothers Union of gender-based violence, to change the traditional and cultural attitudes that look upon others, for example, women, that all that really starts in the home and in the village and in the grassroots. And we are grateful that this is happening as we pray for many more from South Sudan, and as we come alongside our sisters and brothers as they take ownership and do the work in very, very difficult circumstances. You can count on our prayers as we journey together. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Daniel.
I might just add, we may have slipped past a chat note that I saw that Mama Harriet had a question. I don't know if she's still on, but I wanted to point that out.
Go ahead.
Thank you again for the chance. All people who are online, I'm so impressed with the presentations and the area of engagement. It is so relevant to most of the components of the Mothers Union. And my appeal is that, especially to Gulad, I love that question raised by, sorry, I can't remember his name, about the inclusion of women, given that now we have the university, and then if you see the departments or the programs of the university are so limited, And yet the Mothers Union is so big, so many of them ordained, but the illiteracy rate is so high, Bilal, that I would appreciate. I know the university is one of our department, our institution I'm part, but I want to thank that brother who raised that one, and he is so keen and very passionate about women. And in our components, I think Reverend Bilal is so passionate about women empowerment, and he loves women. But now the university have limited what, and yet we want to empower the women pastors, but given their capacity is so low, not only the women pastors. I'm glad to echo it here with that reservation or with that fear. And one of them is empowering the spouses of our archbishops and bishops. I want to thank Nome and the team right in the office of the Archbishop of Canterbury, with the support of Madam Caroline, who actually invited me to give a support to the women. My dear panel online, I want to echo this without fear. I feel hurt, I feel pain. The way I might look like I'm abusing, but that is an action point that I carried from Lambeth, that it is my passion that I want to see at that level of the grassroots, when our women are empowered, the pastor's wife, the bishop's wives, the archbishop's wife, because this is the next thing that we really want if we are to come as South Sudanese women or Mothers Union, and at the umbrella of the Anglican Church of South Sudan. It is very sad, my dear brothers. And all who talked, their areas are so relevant to me. Now my appeal is, I still support expertise, be it economic, be it even physical, coming and giving us that expertise, because Naomi's hand cannot clap. And I want to thank Dan for initiating this meeting and then inviting me as a member of AFREX. I was in AFREX twice, and he came and joined hands with those of Naomi. I want to echo also the support of Five Talent, but the demand is very high. The issues are very many. But believe me, I do understand that we can't start poo-poo-poo, but we need to start somewhere, especially the area of health, the area of clean water. You can only see clean water in the urban area, but when you go to the rural area, it's very sad. There are still diseases. There are no wells, because I know we are well aware, informed about and accessible areas of South Sudan, and we still have the issue of insecurity, not war, but maybe flood, maybe good infrastructures. And one thing is Bilal, my special appeal to Reverend Bilal, as somebody who is in charge of the university. The policies, I doubt whether we have policies in place concerning GBV and even trauma. And if we have those policies with the government, I'm sorry, and I won't echo that, they might be in our trust. I wonder how much is being enacted. The policies are smartly made, but who is a disaster. I'm sorry. You know, I'm a peace activist. I echo what I want to echo. I say what I want to say because I speak as a mother. I speak as a woman who is going through these things, beginning from my family, going to the neighbor, to the community, and to the entire country. My stress is on those policies, Reverend Bilal. If you can respond, and I want also support from the people online, because there are areas of work or program is so relevant to what the Mothers Union is doing, because we have a lot of components. We have the 5 objectives of the Mothers Union: parenting, nurturing, bringing children in the Lord, and having stable family lives, and supporting families who has met with adversity. I think the whole nations, north, south, east, and west, these problems are eminent, they are existing because of the series of the conflict, the peace that we are yearning, we are not seeing it as a woman, as a mother. I think this is my general appeal, and I have to network with all of you. Don't leave us alone. It's not about money, but your expertise, your passion, and your faith. May God bless you, Dan, for initiating all this meeting, but may Reverend Bilal respond. Maybe I'm not aware of the policies, whether we have any concerning GBV or trauma healing in our canon. Thank you.
Joseph Bilal, if you can respond, but very briefly, because I think we need to bring the meeting to a close.
Yeah, thank you so much, my sister Harriet. As you mentioned, my heart is always very deeply with the women, because they are the most that are affected even by this conflict. Currently in the university, the next department that we are going to create is actually Peace and Conflict Resolution Management Department. We have already been discussing about it. We have started initiating a curriculum about it. And then also we're looking now even to begin thinking about appointing someone to it. We have started these discussions, and on the 13th of March, on the 10th of March, that will be one of the things that we are putting on the table for the governing council to approve. And then also looking for some funding. So definitely the GBB issue is going to be addressed, including not only the GBB issue, including youth program, as well as peace building entry. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bilal. Well, thank you all for joining us. And I want to thank Dane Smith and Richard Jones for co-leading this gathering. And I encourage all of you, because of your interest and commitment to the Sudans, to visit the AFREX website and to sign up for their newsletter, and to be generous in your financial support of that network, as well as to ministries in the Sudans. On behalf of the Global Episcopal Mission Network, I want to invite you to visit the GEM website as well, and to consider attending the church-wide 2023 Global Mission Conference that will be held in Tampa, Florida at St. Mark's Church, March 3 to 5. And that will also be preceded by the Mission Formation Program from March 2nd to the 3rd. And you can find out all about that on the GEM website. And then finally, the next Mission Thursday will be held March 16th, exactly 1 month hence, on Mission in the Middle East. Thank you all so much for joining us. God bless you in your commitments, your vision, your work, and your prayers. God bless. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.